I've been leading you want to say it again, do you?
Let's say it again. So maybe you could tell us, please, the first time you were at Guhyaloka.
So I went on a retreat, or led a retreat at a place called El Bloque, which was run by the son of a Dutch order member, Vajrayogini, Dolf Indveld. And I went with the instructions from Bante to look for...
You can talk to me.
Okay. Yeah. To look for somewhere to, establish a retreat centre mainly where he could live. That was his main consideration. He wanted somewhere where he could stay and where there could be retreats going on around him, particularly the men's ordination retreats.
Did he want to live there permanently?
No, but he's anticipating spending 3 to 6 months there each year. But had always been looking for somewhere, a sort of country place. So Guhyaloka, which was initially the country place, that had become too busy. So he wanted somewhere where he could get on with his writing, etc., and assist in the ordination retreat for men. And so, yes, I went with that general brief that while I was in Spain, I could have a look round. So while I was in Spain on that retreat, or at the end of that retreat, Dolf took myself and Chittapala on a trip up into the mountains, up to Sella. We had a meal in Sella. And on the way up, we stopped, and there's even a video recording of this. Dolf had one of the first video recorders, the size of a block of flats, and he recorded us looking up into the mountains, and I'm recorded pointing, saying, that's where we need to be. And it was precisely Guhyaloka. Mm-hmm. So we continued that trip. I went back to England, and then I got a message from Dolf saying that he'd found a place which was for sale, a finca, an estate, and it was in the area that we talked of at the back of the Sierra Aitana, and I should come and have a look. The story is famously that he was just driving on some back roads in the mountains and saw 2 eagles and followed them, and they went through a barrier that happened to be up. Every time he'd gone past before, it was down, but it happened to be up. So he went up, and there was a sign saying, "Se vende esta finca." This estate is for sale. So he talked to the owner, who happened to be there. He named a price, and I came over. I stayed at El Bloque. I looked around at other places. Then he took me up to El Morer, what's now Guhyaloka, and it's just beyond what one could have anticipated. So secluded, escondido, and so beautiful, just beautiful views, just enclosed by the rocks, with a strange procession of heraldic beasts, rocky outcrops of limestone running up the middle. So of course, I wanted it. So I suggested to Bante that we'd probably found it. I made sure that I had 2 other alternatives. Bante came over, stayed at El Bloque, and he and I borrowed a car and drove around. And I took him the most spectacular way up there, which is not from the usual way via Sella, it's from Benimante. And there's a very, well then it was a very, very rocky, difficult track, which went through a tiny little gap in the mountain called El Contador, because that's where the sheep were counted as they went through. And, irresistible already, and came into the valley. Bante, of course, absolutely poker-faced, as usual, and we parked and walked around, and we walked down to where the Dada Stupa is now, and Bhante stood there, looked around and said, "Don't build here." So that was his agreement. And he spoke later of just how impressed he was by the place, by the atmosphere, the quiet, and yes, its seclusion.
He didn't give any indication at the time.
Uh,
He didn't give any indication.
Well,
at the
I
time?
suppose saying "don't build here" is tantamount to saying we're having it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. No, he was very pleased in his own undemonstrative way. Mm.
And where did the money come from?
We'd run a fundraising campaign. I remember it was for Bante's birthday. It was Bante's 60th birthday gift. That's what Guhyaloka is. I hope people never forget this. A lot of people, when I say this, are surprised. But it was Bante's 60th birthday gift from the order. And I remember the campaign was launched. Buddhadasa managed the campaign. He printed up a leaflet, and in a puja, we invited, on an order weekend, a men's order weekend at Pamaloka, we invited people to sign the pledge and put it in a pot in front of the shrine, and pretty well everybody in the room did. You know, probably, well, most of the men's wing of the order, 60 or 70 people, came up, and I think the pledges were quite high, as I remember. I think it was £250, and £250 was quite a lot of money. I remember we got a lot of stick later from certain centres because we'd, as it were, got their people to commit themselves to giving money. I remember Buddhadasa was completely unrepentant. But yeah, we got a lot of money from that. It was 75,000 in all to buy it.
Do you know what that would be today?
Oh gosh, it would be at least a couple of 100,000, I would think, maybe more. And of course, you wouldn't buy it for a couple of 100,000 now. Yes, and then, of course, women also gave, and there was some pots of money. I'm afraid I can't remember offhand what they were. There's some from the early Windhorse trading, and some larger sums came from here and there. I think Bhante had some. Yeah, it came from within the movement. And
there was no building apart from the bungalow?
The bungalow was there, and we had to pay quite a lot for that. I think it was almost half what we paid for the whole thing, but he had us over a barrel, if you see what I mean, and probably I was too quick to bend, if you like. I wouldn't have known how to handle it. I didn't speak Spanish, so I was relying on an interpreter, Dov's wife, Balkye. Yes, Kulamitra gave a lot of money. Kulamitra has been an enormous benefactor to the movement. He bought the LBC, for instance, and other times given huge sums of money. So he may have made some contribution to the larger contribution to the buying. I'm afraid I don't immediately remember that. But he certainly gave money for the work.
Good. So then it's purchased. When does Bhante move there? Is there a period of building?
Yes, yeah. So we gathered a team and began work. As usual in those days, it was a team with a few very competent people, Indra Bodhi and Lokabandhu, and a lot of people who didn't know. I was going to say something, but I'll say something else. One end of a spanner from the other. Yeah.
The difference between a shovel and a spade.
That's it. Yeah. And of course, pretty intense. You're trapped in that valley.
Where did you live?
We lived Oh no, there was another building, of course, the old El Morer farmhouse, which was fairly ruined. We had half of it. The other half was owned by the neighbour, Pepe la Barba, Pepe the Beard, and he was a lovely, gentle man. Yeah, so they sort of camped and squatted there, and some of us lived at the bungalow and la casita.
How many of you were there?
I think there may have been as many as 20, certainly 15.
Did you meditate together?
Huh?
Did you meditate together?
We meditated together, yeah. It was a bit fraught, as often these things were in those days. Conditions were, we thought we were going to Spain and therefore be on the Riviera, but it can be cold, it can rain. And in fact, during the project, we had a massive rainfall, massive. I happened to be in England at the time. I was overseeing the publishing of The Eternal Legacy. So I had to fly back to England from Valencia. And I got back, drove down through rain, which was like a hose pipe, a fireman's hose was being sprayed on your windscreen. At times I had to stop, I couldn't see, the windscreen wipers couldn't clear it. I had a good car. And then when I got to Benidorm, I couldn't get through the tunnel that the bridge under the motorway, because it was full of water, and so I had to stay in Benidorm, and then go up the next day to Sella, and discovered I couldn't get up to the valley because the road had collapsed. So I eventually walked up there, and it was chaos. Everything had been scattered. I remember that the little, it used to be a garage that's abuts Bante's house, the casita, had rain spraying through the bricks, the blocks, and we'd built some really rather, the arches, I can't remember what you call them, the curved arched roof building.
At the bungalow? At the building, okay. Yeah.
Which we'd modelled on an old Moorish design, where you use cañas, that is bamboo, which you gather from the rivers, and then poured rather on a former plaster, and make beautiful shape. One of them was, it had been done, but the covering hadn't been put on it. Down came the rain. Somebody was inside shoring it up when it collapsed, because wet plaster has no strength at all. So somebody, you could even say, narrowly escaped with their life. So they're all quite freaked by that. It was a tense time. And we concluded after that we had to downsize the team and ask some people to go. People had paid for their own trip out, but we were really scarce of money. But yeah, it got done sufficiently to hold the retreat there.
So how long was that period of work?
The building period, the initial building period, up to the point at which we had 2 sets of yeso huts, that's what we call them, isn't it? And the shrine room and a kitchen. That must have taken a year altogether, but hindsight is not very accurate. Bante came up for the first Guhyaloka retreat, which I think must have been 87 or 88.
It was 87.
87. So with the project, we founded in 85, began work in the summer of '85, and began work. It must have been early in '86. So it probably took a year, and then there was a small skeleton team working without any money and doing their best. I had to leave because Bante wanted me back as his secretary. I was trying to run the project from Padmaloka with Arthur Darshan, late lamented Arthur Darshan, who died on the track at Guhyaloka. The first death there. He was on solitary retreat, went for a run and collapsed within sight of the retreat centre. So he and Dharmavira, they did stalwart work. Arthur Darshan was an architect, so he designed the shrine room and that sort of thing. And they were like chalk and cheese, but they did it. They did it. Vasanta was up there at that time, supporting them.
And were you involved with the first ordination retreat?
No.
When did you then get involved with those retreats?
Well, so the ordination process, such as it was, had simply been 1 or 2 retreats at Padmaloka, what I call the turkey shoot, where people were, put through their paces, not always very kindly, of course, from Vasanta and others very kindly, but there were those that didn't do it so kindly. It was a bit brutal. And so must have been 89, 88, Bante asked me to take over the retreat centre. I'd been living in the order office community. So
this is at Padmaloka.
At Padmaloka. So in 89, Bante didn't want to go, he didn't want to do the ordinations any further. We did them, Subhadra and I did them at Padmaloka in the winter, and then it must have been, I get my dates, no, it must have been 88 in the winter. We did it. Bante had gone, he was down in Wales, and he asked us to conduct the ordinations. And then he kind of handed over to us. So in 89, we led the ordination retreat there. Not very many people, I think there were 8 men ordained, 1 who wasn't ordained.
So, and then you had a period of leading those ordination retreats at
I led it in 1990, Subhadra led it in 91, I led it again in 92, and then I didn't do any more. Because I stayed at Guhyaloka after the 92 retreat, writing A New Voice of the Buddhist Tradition.
And the retreat then that you led, the first retreat, were you just using...
Vasanta led that. I was there, Subhadra and I were there and did the ordinations, but Vasanta led the retreat.
Okay.
Very convivial, teamwork. Yeah.
You then led the one the following year.
The 1990, yeah.
And did that change much, or were you just working off a template?
Well, in 1989, we'd developed the ritual, which has continued, although, to my sense, regretfully, been curtailed or altered for various reasons. But we developed the ritual of doing the mantra all the way around the valley, and then in 1990 we developed the Sutra of Golden Light Puja, the Bodhicharya Avatara Puja, and another puja called the Refuge Puja, which I think has rightly fallen into desuetude. And there that we amplified the rituals and the whole ritual context, the idea that you form a mandala and then go into the centre. We built a stupa, the ordination stupa. it's been modified or replaced or whatever. We did it on that retreat. That must have been 1990, Lokabandhu, of course, the ever productive Lokabandhu whipped it up in no time at all. So we developed the idea that the whole retreat was leading to the centre of the mandala where you met the Guru. And we borrowed from Chintamani the mask and costume that he'd developed for the Padmasambhava Day ritual performance, if you like. So people would come into the stupa, which meant it was very low, so you'd crawl under and you'd look up, and Padmasambhava was sitting there. And, I'd be sitting the other side of the door, and you'd watch people's faces, they're just astonished. Somebody even said, "Gore blimey." Astonished, delighted, awed. Yeah, because it's very realistic.
This was in the private ordination?
This is in the private ordination. So half of it was taken up by Guru Padmasambhava, and half by the two, the preceptor and the other. But after that, Sangadevi approached Bhante and said she thought that really, we were putting our emphasis more on Shakyamuni, and it should be really Shakyamuni. So, with some regret, but seeing her point, we did that from then on. And that's when Bhante devised the refuge tree based on Shakyamuni.
And who came up with the idea to have Padmasambhava or somebody dressed as Padmasambhava?
I think in all modesty it was me. I think a lot of this sort of came from me, yeah.
And did you run it past Bhante?
No.
You were confident he would, because it's quite a big thing to do, isn't it? It's quite a big gesture in such
yeah. Well, at that stage, Padmasambhava was much more visibly part of the ritual context. I was doing the old style prostration practice every day, and that's what people would do. And we did introduce the prostration practice into the ordination process, and it would be that people did. So it certainly didn't appear to be much of a stretch. And anyway, we had the bit between our teeth, and in some ways I regret that wasn't continued, because to me the placing of Padmasambhava in the centre had a different significance to the placing of Shakyamuni in the centre, and especially because Bhante in 1990, was it, had given that talk. Was it 90? Oh, when was it? Manu, Buddha, Guru. Was
yes, 79. In
79.
The RBC.
So, that had been a really big injection, a sort of unveiling of an archetype, which had a huge impact on me, as on many other people. I was chair at the LBC at the time, and sat beside Bhante with his notes with 4 words on it, which is very unusual for Bhante. So
he'd lost the notes en route, hadn't he?
Sorry?
He had forgotten the notes, or he lost them en route. His notes for
no,
the
he had them.
He had them.
Yeah.
Had he?
Yeah.
But only 4 words.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No. He deliberately extemporized, and basically most of it is, a lot of it's reading from the Life of Liberation. Yeah. So to me, it seemed that what was happening was you were encountering the Guru, not the Buddha, if you see what I mean, in terms of Manu, Buddha, Guru, Terton. But I took the point that it's important for us to ground ourselves on Shakyamuni, particularly, as I later realised, because we were working in India, where at that time Guru Padmasambhava was a big stretch. Nowadays it's a lot of people do the practice or want to do the practice. But yes, the idea of the valley as a mandala and of all of us forming the walls around the mandala, preparatory to entering the ritual initiatory space, I think probably mainly came from me. Yeah. I remember on the 89 retreat when I first suggested that, and we all pitched in to develop it, as it were. Vasandra did a really amazing ritual. This was for the Vajra wall. We were all sitting in the shrine room, and he had a Vajra, and we all reciting Om Ah Hum, touched the Vajra to his forehead, his throat, and his heart, then pass it on. So it went all the way around the room. It's very, very impressive and sort of a deep solemnity to it. So we were creating that sort of ritual atmosphere.
So
It's extremely creative period for me. 1990 and 92, I gave lots of talks out on the rocks. I don't know whether you know the spot, but there's a spot where there's an outcrop of very Swiss cheesy limestone with a sheer drop down to the where the Dada Stupa is, and this glorious view. So as everybody's sitting with me on a rock above them with this extraordinary backdrop, looking right down to the hills of Murcia and so on. It was very magical, very, very magical. And all sorts of strange things happened, like at crucial moments rainbows would appear, rainbow-coloured clouds appearing in the middle of the valley, etc., etc.
So you did 2 or 3 of those, sometimes leading, sometimes being on the team.
I was on the team for the first one, and then I led the second, the 1991 and the 92 one, and then I came out for the 91 and 93 one to conduct private and public ordinations. I might have come again I was living from 92 onwards, so from 92 onwards I'd go and participate when my presence was required. But Subhadra and then Sona led, because Subhadra started to spend more time in India.
And then you were living there from 92. Why did you go to live there?
I wanted somewhere to write. I find it very difficult to write if I'm in the midst of things. I'd written the first 2 books on an island in Greece, which was something else. In the winter, though, I have to stress. So I wanted those sort of circumstances. And I was even thinking of buying somewhere. I went looking in the south of France and so forth. Banti eventually said, why don't you just stay in my cottage? Because it was his cottage.
Was he going out that often?
He went out every year. He went out during the period of the ordinations, and sometimes he'd stay for longer. He went out with Paramartha, Prasanna Siddhi, and he'd drop in on things. And, while I was living there, I moved out. I moved into Tatsendo. Yeah.
So you were based at his bungalow. You wanted to write.
Yeah.
You started to write.
Yeah.
And how long did you write for?
I was there from 92 till we moved till Guhyaloka was bought. So when would that have been? 95. Yes, and I wanted to stay there, but I got ordered home.
To Guhyaloka.
Yeah, Kurananda contacted me and said Bantu wants you back.
So you presumably had finished writing the book at this stage.
I finished
New Voice?
New Voice of the Buddhist tradition. It took me probably a year. But I was going out to India for 3 months, twice a year. and of course I was spending time in England, so I didn't have a concentrated. So I think it probably went on over 2 years. I wrote other things which I won't mention, and yeah, it's a wonderful period, very intense.
Why intense?
I was on my own in this valley.
You weren't involved. Was there a community there?
There was a community there who shopped for me, and I had some contact with them. I wanted that concentrated period.
So you were like extended periods of months pretty much on your own?
Well, yeah, not completely on my own, but for instance, Yashodeva was living up at the top, and he would come down and see me quite regularly. We'd spend an afternoon, an hour together. When Sona was leading a retreat, he'd come down after lunch. I remember one day he came down and we both fell asleep, and we later discovered that the temperature had hit 46. We realised why we'd gone to sleep. Can be very hot, very rarely, but yes. So I was there off and on during that period, which is very good.
And you, of course, were in Nanigaric at that time?
I was, yeah.
So the conditions suited.
Yeah, yeah.
And you didn't want to come back?
I didn't want to come back. I think the sort of living solitary but around a community suits me very well. It's in a way what I've got now. Sort of solitary. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've wanted that for a long time. I love community and involvement of community, but I sort of, to work, I need space.
Okay, so you come back to, then you go to Guhyaloka. Then have you been out to Guhyaloka since?
Very little. I went out, 10 years ago to ordain Vijayaruchi. I think that's the first time I've been back for quite a long time. I don't really remember. Well, I think I went up there because I was president of Valencia. That was interesting, that Bhante wanted to see other places around, so we drove up to Valencia, and he said, we could definitely have a centre here. And so Moksha Nanda was inspired by that, and that was the result of that. Resulted from that. Yes, so I was president of the Valencia Centre and used to go out annually to preside, and once or twice went down to Guhyaloka. I think that's right. But I didn't have so much contact with it.
And how come back in 92, 93 you stopped leading those retreats if they were such a period of inspiration?
Well, there are other people who were capable of doing it, who could grow and so forth. And I was planning to write, and I couldn't do that and lead the retreat. To begin with, no, I wasn't Subhuti secretary, but the early period from 89 to 92, when I finally moved away, I was still a little bit involved with the order office, and I was chair of Padmaloka and bringing that into being. And also I was going to India, so I couldn't do it all. But anyway, Suvadra, very capable, Sona, very capable, and they needed their opportunities. But I think it was mostly that I had other things which would have taken up quite a bit of my time. Maybe something worth saying is just how much Bhante loved it there. He really did love it. And he used to sit on the veranda in that kasita. There were some rather comfortable cane armchairs, and he would sit there with Paramartha or Prasanna Siddhi for hours, just looking. I remember him telling me, I wrote a book called Bringing Buddhism to the West, which is one of my forgotten books, and in that I quoted something Bante told me while I was interviewing him for that book, which was that his recent experience, which must have been around, I can't remember when it was, I was still at Pamaloka, so it must have been 91, 92, at Guhyaloka, had been of the complete absurdity of time. So he was living the timeless life. And I remember he sort of repeated the complete absurdity of time. I think I even sort of questioned him. He said, time completely absurd. He wasn't going to amplify, because as soon as you amplify, you falsify. So I think that Bante went there for that sort of experience, and he'd have a companion with him. They'd meditate together, study together, with Paramartha particularly. And he used to come up and have meals with the retreat, 92, I remember that. He was in such a expansive, sunny mood. This sort of aspect of Bante, which I call the blue sky mind Bante, in a really vast mind, and at the same time playful and friendly.
Did he ever think of actually living there as his base?
I don't remember him ever saying that. Well, but Bante had a sort of pattern, if you like, that he'd be somewhere and it would set up as he wanted it, and then after a while he'd find it too busy, so he'd want to go somewhere else. I can completely understand the process. And I think Guhyaloka was partly a way in which he could fulfill that desire for greater solitude, greater openness, spaciousness, lack of demand, no internet in those days. We had a phone up there right at the end of my time there, which cost a fortune to use and was not very efficient. So it was really was away from it all. So I think that was a very important part of his dynamic. Often he would go away for 6 months with a companion and
to Guhyaloka.
Well, before Guhyaloka, he'd go somewhere else.
Oh yes. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And then he looked for somewhere in Suffolk where he was going to set up a small community, which I must say I wasn't very happy about, because I was going to be his secretary, driving up and down from Pamaloka, but anyway, it didn't work out. And then we also, Chintamani, Chittapala, Silabhadra and I drove down to the south of France, because Harshaprabha had seen somewhere down there, and so we investigated that, eventually decided it wasn't a goer. So there had been a sort of momentum towards Guhyaloka, and then that coalesced with the ordination retreats, and get a place for the ordination retreats, which could also be this more sort of secluded place for Bante. Sit with his Panama hat and his shorts.
And he liked the heat, of course.
Yeah, loved it, yeah. No, he's obviously very happy there. And some would come down from Guhyaloka with the food. Yeah.
Do you know when he was last there?
No, I don't. Quite a long time ago. I don't know why he stopped using it, but I think it was probably around the time. He certainly was up there when I was at Guhyaloka, so it can't have been long after that, after 95, 96, 97, as far as I remember.
Maybe when his eyesight started to go on the early notice.
Well, that would have been early. That was
2003.
It was before then. I think he didn't go up there, but he might have gone.
He was there. He was still going on my ordination trips.
When was that?
That was 2000.
Oh, okay.
And he went the next year. I'm pretty sure he was visiting. He would go out there. Yeah. But I don't have a memory of him once the eyesight went. I was just curious.
You don't remember?
I have no memory of him going once his
Yeah.
eyesight started to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not something I would have very clearly imprinted. Mm. But he loved the place, no question, and was very sort of moved that we bought it, and felt the gift of it. Yeah.
And you yourself, any desire, draw to go back?
Well, as so often with places from one's past, one has ambivalence about revisiting. But I did enjoy my visit for Guhyaloka's ordination. It's a bit strange. And, weren't in a particularly comfortable place. It was one of the pallet huts. Yeah, I think I'd happily go and stay there, as I did before.
But you don't feel a draw, you don't feel like it is a place you want to return to and do a longer retreat, or
not particularly. No, I haven't had that feeling.
I guess you've been with Maes Gwyn up in the mountains.
Yeah, we had Maes Gwyn.
Wales.
Yeah.
You had that for a long time. So
Yeah.
that experience of pure nature, isolation.
Yeah. From the hot dry to the cold wet. Yeah, but it was in a sense the same impetus. Yes, I think I'm by nature a bit of a hermit, but a conflicted one. If you see what I mean, I've got a very extrovert nature as well as a strong introvert pull. So difficult to accommodate the two in the same life.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for all those
My pleasure.
memories and
Yes,
stories.
all-
Yes.
You caught an old man, and old men always love to reminisce. I could go on, but let's stop there.
Okay, thank you so much.
I hope